Well, folks, let me take you back to the 1950s and 1960s, an era where America's heart beat inside its homes, and the woman at the center of it all was the housewife. She wasn't just running a household, she was carrying the weight of the perfect family image on her shoulders. Neat green lawns trimmed to perfection, sparkling kitchens that smelled of lemon polish, smiling children in pressed clothes, and a husband who came home to a hot meal on the table. It all looked effortless. To the outside world, she made it look easy. But behind that polished image was a world of hidden sacrifice, a reality that most never dared to speak aloud. Here's the real question. What did it actually cost her to keep that picture-perfect life intact? To answer that, we need to step directly into her shoes. Imagine waking up before sunrise, long before the first bird call or the bubbling of the percolator on the kitchen counter. The house was still dark, but her day had already begun. While the rest of the family was still dreaming, she was ironing her husband's shirt so it would be crisp for the office, packing brown paper lunch bags for the children, and slipping into the kitchen to whip up bacon, eggs, and pancakes before anyone's feet hit the floor. There was no pause button, no moment of stillness to gather herself. In those days, appearances weren't just a preference, they were a duty. The neighbors might notice, the church ladies might talk, and society as a whole demanded perfection. Housewives sacrificed their own comfort first. No one saw the sore knees from hours spent scrubbing floors by hand because the vacuum cleaner was too clumsy for every corner. No one counted the endless hours of standing over a stove, sweating in a hot kitchen to prepare meals from scratch, pot roasts, casseroles, pies, because takeout or shortcuts were considered failures. Her body often ached, her energy drained, but the image of a perfect home always came first. Her needs, they came last, quietly pushed aside. But it wasn't just the physical toll. The deeper sacrifice was emotional. Imagine a young woman with dreams of her own, college classes she once loved, a talent for art, a secret wish to open a little shop on Main Street. Those dreams often vanished the moment a wedding band slipped onto her finger. By the 1950s, the expectation was crystal clear. A good wife stayed home. A woman who worked outside the home was seen as desperate, or worse, as a reflection that her husband couldn't provide enough. And so, the housewife traded ambition for approval, personal freedom for public respect. And yet, she smiled. Smiling was part of the uniform, as essential as the pressed dress and the neatly tied apron around her waist. The world outside saw only that polished image, the tidy woman answering the door with grace, the cheerful hostess pouring coffee for guests, the calm mother corralling children with patience. No one asked about the loneliness that crept in after the kids left for school. No one noticed the silence that wrapped around her in the afternoons when the chores were done, and the only sound in the house was the hum of the refrigerator or the faint crackle of the radio. Here's where it gets interesting. Did she ever resent it? The truth is, it depended. Many housewives took pride in their role. They believed with all their hearts that they were the foundation of America's strength, the silent builders of stability in a shaky world. Their work was invisible but vital. Still, deep down, there were whispers of dissatisfaction. They surfaced in letters never mailed, in journals hidden in nightstand drawers, in late-night kitchen conversations with other women over cups of strong coffee once the men had gone to bed. Those whispered thoughts rarely escaped the home, but they were there, flickers of longing for something more. And that brings us to you. If you grew up in a home where your mother or grandmother was the center of everything, what do you remember about the sacrifices she made that no one ever talked about? Did she give up her own dreams so yours could come true? Did she hold back tears so you'd only see her smile? Share those memories below. I'd love to hear your stories. Your voices bring life to the history that so often went unspoken. Don't forget to subscribe for more untold realities of American life, because in Part 2, we're digging deeper into what housewives gave up quietly, pieces of themselves that never made it into the picture-perfect family portrait. Now, let's peel back the curtain even further. Beyond the daily chores, beyond the endless routines, housewives made sacrifices most families never noticed, or perhaps chose not to see. These sacrifices weren't written down in history books, but they were etched into the lives of countless women. One of the greatest sacrifices? Identity. In those days, a woman's name rarely stood on its own. It was swallowed up by her husband's title, her husband's reputation, her husband's story. If he earned a promotion, the neighbors congratulated her as if she had somehow polished his success into existence. If he lost his job or stumbled, whispers might quietly blame her. Maybe her cooking wasn't good enough. Maybe her home wasn't warm enough. Maybe she wasn't keeping him satisfied. She was applauded or judged, not as an individual, but as an extension of someone else. Over time, that invisibility became a silent wound, one she carried with grace but rarely spoke about. Then there was the social pressure, a force heavier than any basket of laundry. Glossy magazines like Good Housekeeping and Ladies' Home Journal filled their pages with smiling women holding casseroles, perfectly dressed children, and husbands who always looked satisfied. Housewives read those pages like instruction manuals, clipping recipes, saving decorating spreads, chasing a dream of perfection that didn't actually exist. It came at a cost. Late nights spent sewing costumes that would be worn once, missed sleep from polishing the silver before guests arrived, endless anxiety that the curtains weren't fresh enough, where the children's manners weren't sharp enough. Failure wasn't an option, because in a small town or tight-knit neighborhood, one slip could invite gossip that lasted for years. Some sacrifices were financial and deeply personal. Even if a woman longed to work, society said her place was at home. Most families survived on one paycheck, which meant she was completely dependent on her husband. If he was kind, she felt secure. If he was strict, stingy, or controlling, she had little power to push back. Many women became quiet strategists, hiding coins in coffee tins, saving grocery change, or stretching a pound of meat into 3 meals so there'd be enough left over to treat the children. Others learned the art of silent budgeting, knowing they'd never dare admit they wanted something for themselves. Speaking up about money wasn't just frowned upon, it was branded as ungrateful. But perhaps the deepest sacrifice was freedom. Her world was small, limited to the walls of her home and the occasional errands that were considered appropriate. A simple walk to the corner store could feel like an adventure. A weekly trip to church or the PTA meeting was her version of a social life. Even her hobbies weren't truly hers. Sewing wasn't just a pastime. It was mending clothes to save money. Gardening wasn't a creative escape. It was a way to keep food on the table. Scrapbooking was an art. It was memory keeping for the family. Every interest was reframed as another form of service. And here lies the bittersweet truth. Many housewives convinced themselves that this sacrifice was happiness. They told themselves that raising strong children, supporting their husbands, and keeping a flawless home was purpose enough. And in a way, it was true, because their sacrifices gave families stability. They gave men the confidence to chase careers, knowing their wives were holding the fort. They gave children the gift of structure and safety. They gave neighborhoods their sense of order and pride. Without them, the American dream might never have taken shape. But late at night, when the dishes were washed and the house was quiet,
Questions sometimes rose like ghosts in the dark. Who might I have been if life had allowed me to choose? What talents lay buried under laundry and casseroles? What voice inside me was never heard? These were questions without answers, scribbled in private diaries or whispered over coffee to a trusted friend. And here's the twist. Not every housewife regretted her role. Some truly found joy in homemaking, in the rhythm of baking bread, in creating beauty out of ordinary things, in being the anchor their families leaned on. For them, sacrifice wasn't loss, it was love expressed in 1,000 quiet ways. But for many others, the sacrifices remained invisible. They weren't written in family photo albums. They weren't thanked at dinner tables. They weren't remembered when people looked back at the good old days. Their stories lived only in unspoken memories, tucked into the background of America's picture-perfect family portraits.
So what do these sacrifices mean today? For many of you watching, especially those over 65, this isn't just history, it's memory. You lived it. You saw it. Maybe you were the child who watched your mother hold everything together. Maybe you were the teenager who thought her neat dress and steady smile meant she had no worries. Or maybe you were the housewife herself, the one who carried it all in silence. The legacy of the American housewife is complicated. On the surface, it's one of pride and tradition. These women created the warm rituals we still remember today. Sunday dinners with the good china, spotless living rooms ready for company at a moment's notice, Christmas mornings that felt like pure magic, and holidays where every detail was crafted by hand. They didn't just maintain homes, they built memories, brick by brick, casserole by casserole, year after year. Their sacrifices gave families an anchor in a fast-changing world. But look a little deeper, and you see another side. Many of these women look back and wonder if their sacrifices were ever noticed, let alone appreciated. Did anyone really see the exhaustion behind that smile? Did anyone recognize the ambitions quietly put away in drawers like forgotten letters? Often, the more perfect the image appeared, the more invisible the sacrifice became. That's the cruel irony. The better they succeeded, the less anyone realized how hard it truly was. And yet, here's the beauty. By remembering these stories today, we give them the honor they never asked for, but always deserved. We shine a light on the invisible labor that built not just families, but communities and entire generations. We remind ourselves that behind every polished family photograph was a woman who gave more of herself than the world will ever fully know. There's another part of the legacy, too. The housewives of the 50s and 60s paved the way for change. Their sacrifices, both spoken and unspoken, laid the groundwork for future generations of women to ask harder questions. Do I have the right to choose my own path? Can I balance home with ambition? Can my identity be mine and still belong to a family? Their silent struggles became the seeds of voices that grew louder in the decades that followed. But let's not forget, many women never wanted change. For them, homemaking was a vocation, not a burden. They found genuine fulfillment in being the center of love, in raising children, in keeping a home alive with warmth and order. Their happiness was real, their sacrifices chosen. The truth of the housewife's story is not one size fits all. It's a patchwork quilt made of pride, loss, joy, silence, and sacrifice stitched together across millions of homes. So here's my question for you. When you think of the housewife who shaped your family, whether it was your mother, your grandmother, or even yourself, what is the one sacrifice she made that you'll never forget? Was it the way she skipped meals so you could eat more? The way she wore the same dress year after year so her children could have new clothes? Or was it simply the way she never let you see how tired she really was? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's build a living memory wall
one where every sacrifice is finally recognized, every quiet act finally honored. If this story touched you, please give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who remembers those days. Because these aren't just stories from the past, they're reminders of the strength, resilience, and love that built America's families. And as you think back tonight, remember this: sometimes the strongest legacy isn't in what was said, it's in what was given up, quietly, for the sake of love.